one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I would take a motion to approve the regular agenda.
So moved.
John made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I heard Rick. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 I would take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
And I have a request to take number C, approval of liquor, beer, wine, and miscellaneous, and treat it as a separate item.
Okay, is there a second to that?
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion to approve the consent agenda with that detail. And seconded by Sean. All in, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Okay, so then now we'll talk about item C.
Do we talk about it now, or do you want to talk about it at 10E? Like, how have you guys normally handled those consent agendas?
Well, let's see what Bruce's question is, since I got it out right here.
Okay.
Yep, and then.
You
Go
want
ahead.
to cover it now? I just have a general question about the process, not necessarily the content or what the recommendation is. Do you want to discuss that now and
Yeah,
take it
go
take it
ahead.
as
Yes.
action item right
Yep,
now?
we'll do it now.
Is that what you want?
And I apologize, I should have mentioned this earlier, but I did not attend the closed meeting which the minutes referred to. So I apologize for not mentioning that earlier. So that should be corrected.
Mm-hmm. You're correct.
The narrative, the memo on liquor, beer, wine, and miscellaneous, I have no question about the recommendation or that. I just was interested in having a discussion or understanding, basically, or know the process of this, because as the narrative talks about, City Council does not formally review all the liquor license application details, et cetera, required to report details, law violations and things like that. So my first question is, were there any violations from last year on any of these applicants? There was not. What is the standard that we have then? Do we have objective criteria when you're making recommendations on these?
Yeah, some of the criteria is covered in the liquor laws and what you're able to issue a license to.
Okay.
So as long as they have not been charged with felonies, or have numerous alcohol violations, related to their license, then you could not, well, that would be grounds for denial on that. So I do end up doing, background checks, checking, histories in-house, checking with courts, in court records to see if those named in the application had any violations throughout the last year. Part of the application process also requires them to list the last 5 years of any violations. Some of the bigger chains, Hy-Vee, Coburn's, they'll usually submit a list of generally more than 5 years, whatever they have in their records of all their violations with all their stores. So you have to kind of go through that and look if there were any. Some of those aren't necessarily like a law enforcement compliance check. They might be a business compliance check. But they may indicate in that they failed. No fine was levied, person was dismissed from service.
So is there actual criteria that we have at the city level that says something that if there's 3 violations, you'd recommend to the city council that they not get approved, or is it just kind of subjective on staff and police recommendations, or is it? And I only ask that is because I get uncomfortable sometimes when we're just asked this carte blanche approval kind of process, and we don't really know what's underneath the blankets or what's been looked at or that type of thing.
No, when I do the background checks, I go and look at, for instance, on a new applicant, when we do that background check, if we would have grounds for not allowing the license for that. So if they're in the last year, then since they were last issued their license, have they had violations that would be covered with that disqualifier? So I'm looking for those disqualifiers that would not allow them to be issued the license.
Wasn't there a situation, Jim, 10 years ago that we were almost to the brink of suspending the license for 3 days? I can't remember what the
Yep.
circumstances were now.
One of the bars had several violations.
Yeah, so it triggered a discussion at council and
So
there was,
if I'm not mistaken, when there are violations, especially when you do checks, you do bring that to the council, if I remember right.
Yeah,
So it's, the council's advised of any throughout the year if there were some, or something else, like all of a sudden in the middle of the year, an establishment and owner would get disqualified. We'd have to act on it then.
yeah, if there was a felony charge on something that was liquor related, that could potentially cause a need for council action to withdraw or suspend or revoke that license.
Okay, so if there were any violations last year, that would have shown up in this memo then?
Yep,
Okay, because it appears that, kind of doesn't tell us
yep.
if there is or isn't. So our policy is really to disclose to the city council any violations that occurs anytime they're for renewal then? Okay.
And then it sounds as if it's just one violation, that's a disqualifier. So we're not saying, setting a precedent that if you have one, well, okay, but if you have two, you're not. I mean, so if it's a qualifying situation and it's one, then it's no license. Is that what we're?
Well, my understanding, there's nothing that disqualifies. I mean, there's no specific standard. It says on the second violation, you don't get a license, or the third, or the fourth, it could be fifth, and the city council could still approve it. We have
So
no.
it's discretionary.
That is discretionary. Both our alcohol license and ordinance and our tobacco ordinance kind of has a graduated fine or
Yeah.
penalties in them. So if it's one violation within 36 months, second violation within that, then it escalates up like that. Alcohol has kind of the same thing with that.
Okay.
So those might be, they could be any violation, a misdemeanor or a gross misdemeanor, not necessarily disqualifying that person from having that license because it didn't rise to a felony level. But it would be something that the council would weigh in and say, hey, we have our designated fine in our ordinance, so we're gonna have that person pay that. What Sean brought up is, we did have some that had escalated into like 3 violations, so the council I believe we did pull the license.
yeah, for 3 days, I think
Yeah.
it's just been, do you remember the establishment? I can't for the life of me. It was at least
It
10
was
years ago.
JT's,
Oh, yes.
Oh, JT's, that's right.
yes, back in that day.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
In that scenario, there's nothing that, we're at the second one, okay, this gets reported to the city council, and third, and, we're gonna possibly suspend. It's all discretionary though, is that correct? So we're not asking you to report that at a certain point or anything. And I'm just trying to understand the process.
Normally, if we take administrative action on a violation, and that might be as simple as, hey, an establishment is open one night and officers are patrolling and notice at 2:30 in the morning, there are people inside actively drinking. That's a violation of our ordinance. So a report might be completed, follow-up would be done, and that would more than likely escalate into an administrative procedure that the city would take against that license holder, notify them that there was a violation, and that would come to the council in that notification then.
And you say more than likely, so that there's not a,
Well,
it's not a,
if
but-
this is a public meeting, so I don't wanna give any leeway, but,
No,
but if we saw people in there and it happened to be, the owner and two of his relatives that were just cleaning up yet, yeah, that wouldn't be a violation. If there's a handful of people in there and they're actively drinking and they're providing drinks after closing time, that's a violation.
Well, I appreciate the comments, and I think I understand. I'm just, I do agree that we should keep it as flexible as possible, which I kind of understand the way it's set up and it provides the city council a lot of latitude. On the other side of it, then it's, you have to make sure that it's fair, and I'm just wondering at what, we don't really necessarily have criteria. Now, we might have a different staff later on that might approach things differently, so that's why I'm just wondering what the standards are. If this happens, then this happens, but we don't necessarily have that kind of a or setup or procedures or that type of
Yeah,
thing.
over the years that I've been here, the police department has taken a stance that, hey, if you have a liquor license, you should be following the rules, ordinances, and state laws that are set forth to be providing that alcohol, and that's what we would enforce.
Okay, thank you.
And you still report if there's restaurants or bars that are, or even liquor stores that are caught in that sting that you do once or twice a year, you, I think, always report that
Yeah,
there was.
we would
did it
usually-
Last Thursday, and there was 2 people that received fines.
Yeah.
So we were always kept
Yeah,
abreast.
I think from previous, I remember that too. Okay, so with that, I would take now, I kind of forgot myself. Did we approve everything on the consent except for C? Okay. So, I would take a motion to approve, the 22-23 liquor, beer, wine, and miscellaneous licenses.
So moved.
Sean made a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Maggie seconded it, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay, now we're up to item number 9. I take it you're here for item number 9, ma'am. I recognize you from the past. Yep. Okay.
All right, so I do have a PowerPoint for
Yep.
item number 9 here tonight, if keep that pulled up here. All right, so this item came from the Planning Commission meeting back on February 23rd, and this is conditional use permit C1 2022 for an outdoor seating area. The applicant is actually Owen Schultz, but tonight we have Mona Schultz here on behalf of 1319 Woodfire Tavern. To give you a overview map here, location is downtown at 125 East Main. We have the pink color on the map is the B1 Central Business District zoning. It actually extends to First Street on the north there, then a little bit to the west of First Avenue as well, but right in the core of downtown, and we'll get into some more details here in a second. 1319 Woodfire Tavern opened back in 2021. Since that time, they've been undergoing renovations, including the addition of a full kitchen. The plans also included an outdoor patio with access between their building and the patio via one currently installed overhead garage door, and then they'll have a couple of partial garage doors, and then one regular access door between the building and the patio as well. Most of the patio was actually completed in 2021, and the way they were able to operate with that patio was under a council resolution for the COVID-19 pandemic that will actually be expiring on October 31st of 2022. By that time, they have to have their permanent patio approved and in place, so while they technically don't need it at this point, they will by the end of the year. So they have applied for the application to have the permanent patio go through the process here tonight. On the west side of the building, the patio is approximately 10 feet wide by 65 feet deep. There are 48 planned seats in the patio. If they were to, use up that entire area with the seating that they could fit in there. They also have emergency exit only gates on the north and south end of the patio. And as I noted, the Planning Commission did review at their meeting on the 23rd of February. We did have a public hearing as required by statute, and we had one resident, Dave Malls. He lives on 109 First Avenue Northeast, just to the kind of the northeast of the property. He indicated that he had issues with loud music from previous ownership and previous operation of the patio. We talked at the planning commission meeting that music on the patio is not allowed after 10 PM with our patio ordinance, and then also can have anything audible beyond 50 feet that's occurring on the patio. And then in general, we have our decibel limit for general noise, which just references MPCA decibel limits in our noise ordinance. So have all that covered. So Mr. Malls, I believe, was satisfied with hearing that information. He said he didn't have any issue with the current ownership or operation. And then the applicants at the meeting indicated they wouldn't have anything other than acoustic music out on the patio if they had any. Ultimately, the planning commission recommended a 4-0 approval of the patio. So again, I've highlighted the patio area in red on that west side of their building. And they also had a easement agreement put in place with the building owner to the west, because the west 1 foot of what everybody thought was an alley, it's actually just private property. The west 1 feet was actually owned by the building on the west side. So that has been put in place. It's recorded a record with the county. It was actually one of the conditions of approval. But here's just a better view of the patio area. They will be required to put some planters up near the gate or the front fence along the Main Street area there. Required to keep patrons back far enough so they can't easily pass a drink over to the sidewalk on Main Street, so they will have that. But also provide the required 50% opacity into the patio area from the fencing there as well. You can see the other gate off the back is actually a 6 foot tall gate on the back there. And again, those are exit only. You have to go through the main entrance of the bar. Other than emergency situations, you could exit out these gates. A little bit closer view there, the patio, you can see one of the, or the main overhead garage door in the middle there. The plywood indicates that partial garage doors that are not, I don't believe they're installed yet. I guess I didn't notice in the past few days, so.
They're on back order, so probably April timeline, they're telling us.
So they're getting there, and then the other picture on there is a view of the rear parking area, and one of the conditions is we want to make sure they get that striped to kind of organize their parking on the rear parking area there. And then just a couple of older, one older photo, excuse me, showing what it used to look like. They obviously brought up the elevation. They put in some drainage improvements in the patio. I think it looks great. It's actually kind of nice to me that they were able to complete the majority of it prior to the CUP being completed, so we have a good view of how that will look here tonight. So staff of the planning commission did recommend approval as outlined in the resolution in the packet.
Okay. Any questions of the council?
I'll make a motion, we approve the conditional use permit, C12022.
Okay, there's been a motion and Rick seconded it. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Thank you.
You guys,
Yep,
appreciate it.
my wife's been in there and she says it's a very nice place, so I hope, when's the kitchen gonna be done?
Well,
Do you
we're
think?
hoping- We're waiting for a backorder part for the plumber, and as soon as that plumbing gets in, we've got about a week of training. We've hired all of the majority of our employees, and so we're hoping 2 weeks, 3 at the outside.
Okay.
but We're really hoping for 2, so.
Cool.
We're just waiting for, again, backorder parts, and as soon as they're in and get put in,
Yep.
we'll be ready to go, so.
Sounds good.
Kinda got things lined up. We're
Thank you.
anxious to get started.
Yeah, I bet you are.
Lucky guys.
Thank
Luck.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is vendor recommendation for IT risk management.
I will take that one. So as the council will recall, on our project list for 2022, we had a project that we considered to be called IT risk assessment. That was actually an item we had initially in our work plan from when we had the computer refresh back in 2020. Some money was set aside, actually $16,500 was set aside from the former CARES Act money that was put into fund balance here for 2022 so that we could get this done. So what I did was worked with CTS, and we contacted two different firms that are able to do this type of work. FR Secure was actually one that CTS typically works with. And then the other one, True North Consulting, and those that were on the council at the time recall that True North was actually our implementation consultant and helped us go through the RFP process for our computer system to begin with. So we had those two firms submit proposals, and give you a little background on what an IT risk assessment is. It actually is taking a look at the security risk for our system, and it looks at four main components. So you have administrative controls, which is really, trying to control what people do, make sure you don't click on things you shouldn't be clicking on, phishing emails, scams, that type of thing. Other policies that we may or may not have. And then number two is physical controls. That could be making sure buildings are locked. Do they have cameras? We actually have 20 physical locations that we haven't included on here. Those are on the second page there. Anything from City Hall all the way down to lift station locations, because anywhere you have an open or a network that you can get to, that's a vulnerability. So we look at that granular of a level. Number three, internal technical controls. It's basically anything occurring behind the firewall, which is here at City Hall for the most part. And then number four, external technical controls, and that's anything outward facing to the internet. I'm not an expert on this at all, but I did have Zach Dinsmore, the CEO of CTS, working with me to put this together, review the proposals that we had, actually help put together the RFP that went out to these firms, and based on the proposal of what we got back from both of these firms, he's recommending that we go with True North. It comes in just under our budgeted amount of $16,243, so just slightly under that $16,500 budget. They both use the same NIST security protocol. Don't ask me to explain what that is. I don't fully know, but it's the industry standard for IT risk assessment. And other than that, I don't know that there's much more I can try to explain on that, but very much needed thing to do. The one thing Zach pointed out, that even though we have brand new infrastructure, brand new systems, probably going to score pretty lowly on our risk assessment, just because of the fact that we've never done one before, and we have a number of policies we could have in place, anything from, certain policies on anything from employee use of internet on, handheld devices and tablets and all that different things. So it'll probably be a bit of an eye opener, but what they would intend to do is have the report and come back in front of the council and give a overview of kind of how everything looks from the security standpoint. But don't be alarmed, I guess, is what they're trying to tell me, because it'll be an eye opener.
Yeah.
So
I would imagine there'll be a lot of recommendations.
many recommendations. So
How come the big difference of 40,000
Yeah,
to?
wow.
it really came down to True North had been our consultant for the RFP process, and they have all the background information already on all of our facilities, because they had put together all of the tour documents and everything when we were doing the RFP process. So I'm very familiar with what we already have, so I didn't have to go through from step one, where are the facilities, visiting them, going through the whole run. They already have a full inventory and all that. So they're able to do it a lot quicker. That's what added up very quickly, was these 20 additional sites that were on there.
Okay.
The actual proposal of the actual work outside of the physical visits are very similar.
Okay. All right, any other questions? Otherwise, I'd take a motion to approve, the recommendation for IT risk assessment, the vendor of.
I'll make a motion to approve the vendor recommendation for IT risk assessment as being True North.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it. I have a question.
Yep.
I don't remember seeing, or maybe it is, but just to keep in mind that one of the things is not only to check ourself, but the vendors that we work with. And I know we accept credit cards, and so I don't know if we're watching and getting their risk assessment audits to verify for us.
I think, is that more part of the, trying to blank on that name. PCI compliance. You're an expert on that, so.
Yeah, we're still working through. PCI compliance is, having all your standards up to date for taking that information, having your policies in place for, not keeping, designated information about customers. Generally, I think we contract with 2 different companies right now that accept
The credit card.
credit cards on our behalf. So we do not store any of that information. It's all done through them.
Right, I think, and maybe, maybe True North will talk about this, I don't know if it's, I just remember at the bank as an example, any vendor that we worked with, we would require it to get their risk assessment audit. So
Okay.
we know that their operation, because they involved our customers, had a risk assessment. And the only one I can think of that the city really would want is, or whoever our credit card vendor is we're sharing our city's customers' information with an outside party that's not controlled by the city. And there may be others, I just thought of that one first, so, but that's what True North might be able to help us with, is if we have a policy in place to get those every year or something like that. There may be other ones that, our vendor with software for, I don't know if we share any residential information with any other outside party, but that would tell you the parties, the vendors we need to look at.
Yep.
The credit card is the only one I can think of, but there may be others that I don't know, don't know about.
Yeah,
What they would help with you, and I was just suggesting that you keep that in mind as you talk to True North and whatnot.
True North and looking at their policies too. You could look into that and making sure that's in there. That would be a good idea.
I try to do the math quickly. Is this add up to 16.2? 8 and 2 at the page 7? Are we doing all the optional?
Yes, all the optional, and then there's a discount.
Oh, okay, a discount, because it doesn't,
They don't spell out the discount I did on the breakdown on the second page.
okay,
Yeah, so if you try to add up True North's proposal, it will be obviously more.
and that is just to try to fool with me and to try to make me go
Discount,
crazy.
discount if all options selected is $1,805 on the
Yeah,
first
so
page, or a
the
second page.
subtotal that says discount when all are selected, and then you end up at 16.
Yeah, I like to see things add up, but, okay,
That's why I did the table here.
okay, thank you. Those are all,
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any other questions? Otherwise, I take a motion to approve the vendor.
we did.
I would, call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Sorry about that.
Brain freeze there, Dwayne?
It's just I beat it to death again.
Again, he makes me forget where I'm at. Okay, authorization to advertise for planner position in planning department.
I'll take that, yeah, just real quickly. So, back on our workshop on November 1st, we had, included at that point, and it was remained on through, was the budgeting for a planner position starting on 5/1 of '22. And you guys wanted the, position brought back before we advertised for it. So tonight, basically giving you more of the background information, once again, that we had gone over back in November, that the position we had pointed, it fell right where we expected it to be with that duties that we had talked about at that time at grade 12. We would hope to get somebody fresh out of college or fresh out of an internship, kind of in that lower end. Really, the key things to point out here is that this would be obviously assisting my role in a lot of the day-to-day duties to get that done, anything from zoning permit review to, more of the permit review, that type of thing, and then also backup for our front counter, and then primary grant writer, and then EDA activities such as research, a lot of things that eat up a lot of time on these requests that we get from the industrial park, and then just general, follow-up and follow-through with new businesses that we get called from on any, given day. But I just listed on page 2, just a few of the ongoing tasks. There's about 1 million more, that I could have added to that, but I just wanted to point out some key items on there. There's a lot of things that we just haven't been able to do, since I've been the only one here and things have gotten busy, so, very much looking forward to having the assistance and actually, for the betterment of the city to get some things moving forward again. So, at the very end, obviously, the, drafted, job description and, typical qualifications, that type of thing, so. Nothing out of the ordinary there. It actually is, somewhat similar to, back when we had a planner position in the early, 2000s, late 2000s, early 2010s, till it was laid off in 2010, so.
Run that past me again. We had 2 people till
Yeah,
2000.
myself and Renee were here up until sometime in 2010. I forget the exact date, but
Oh, really? I don't remember that. I mean, I guess I don't remember her being laid off, but. Okay.
Are you requesting a motion or just information?
just, I don't know, concurrence to start the advertising process.
Yeah, we're just asking that it's okay to start the process, because while we were talking about this position during the budgeting process, you all wanted to see it one more time before we went forward.
Is that okay with everybody?
I'm fine with
Personally,
it.
I'm okay with it.
I think Ken deserves the help.
Okay. The next thing is the city administrator review summary. Is that me? Well, after going through a whole box of tissues, Josh and I met last Wednesday, I think it was.
Sometime last week.
Sometimes, yeah, and I went over everything from the council, and we talked, and we talked about goals going forward, and I think a lot of those goals are gonna be kind of coming out in this visioning when we get done with that, you know, how we want him to take off from there, but all in all, you know, he did a satisfactory job, and he really didn't have any questions other than telling me that he really enjoyed moving to New Prague. It's a community that he really feels good in, and that he's looking forward to being here for many years. And I told him I couldn't guarantee that, but anyway, so I would make a recommendation that we give, per the contract, the next step based on that satisfactory evaluation. So I'll make that a motion. Would somebody want to second?
Second.
Rick seconded it. Any other discussion or questions?
I just want to clarify, was there during the closed meeting, did the review take place? Because what I understood you to say that you met with them
Yeah,
individually?
after the review.
Okay.
After the closed session review, then I met with him that following
Did
Wednesday.
you guys all do it together, though?
Yes, yeah, so the review was done without me, and then they kind of gave me the highlights.
Oh, you weren't even there?
Well, so they discussed amongst themselves kind of the review, and then I came back and we did the highlights, and then Dwayne just went over the details with me later.
Okay.
Is that how, it wasn't done that way before?
The last time I remember, we just did it all together at the same time.
Okay,
But I don't see a problem with the way.
okay.
think it
And we can
worked
do
out
that
well.
for the 1 year, so, okay. So there's a motion and second to give them the step increase per the contract, and all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. The next thing is technology needs for council members.
Yes, this was put on after an email from Councilman Bass, and so I guess I will let you take this.
Thank you. So, I'm sure that all or most of you may have gotten phone calls and emails from the situation that occurred at the girls' basketball game. And it got me to thinking that I think it's time that as council members, we have city-issued personal computers to conduct business, possibly phones. And the reason I'm thinking this is that if this had escalated, there was a bigger investigation, our personal equipment could have gotten confiscated as part of that investigation. And I don't want to be in that situation, to have my personal computer and my personal phone involved in an investigation. I think we're at a certain level in our interaction as a council, and certainly our city is growing, social issues are growing, problems are arising. It's high time that we are issued city equipment to conduct city business. And with that, the risk assessment probably would enable us to put policies into place on how that equipment is supposed to be used. So that's where I'm coming from. I think it is just time not to be using our personal equipment. Furthermore, personal PCs, are they protected with antivirus software and then when we're connecting to our city email, hopefully there's, firewall prevention there, but we don't know how each other's PCs are configured. Rick, I know that you sometimes have technology problems with your phone, so it's not making you as effective as you want to be. So I think it's just high time that we get on board with city equipment.
Now, in the past, I remember, there used to be a city phone number, like a 758 phone number that each council member used to have. Used to come in, do you guys ever remember any of that?
So it was just a phone number that we were issued that we could access to our voicemail and things of that nature? Okay.
I think, because everyone had, it was like a 758 1100 number.
Yep, so I did speak to Ken with that, and he had to run because he had a band
No,
concert
that's
to get
fine.
to. But he did not ever remember that phone number existing.
Well, it was each member had one. I remember seeing it on the website years ago. And maybe I'm wrong. I just thought each member had one.
Yeah,
More than likely, each member had an extension
Yes,
on our system.
yes,
And then to call into that, you used 758 1150, called into that voice box,
yes,
identified yourself, hit your password, and then you could get your message and
Yep.
retrieve them remotely.
yep. And that went away. I don't know why or when.
I wonder if that went away with the advent of cell phones, only because people like to be able to call as well from that number.
That still doesn't alleviate what she's saying, though.
No, I mean,
Even if that system, if we started that whole system back up again, that would not alleviate the issue of our phones and computers, liable for conversation, You see what I'm saying? And it could be over something as silly as what she just said.
No, and
We talked about this when the mayor first got elected, and we were all on our own personal computers. So even if they wanted to hear something from a year ago, they could still confiscate our computers. So I agree with her totally.
any other questions? I just, and then I was thinking like you would have a dedicated one, that you could carry around.
What, a cell phone?
No, not, or cell phone, or what I was thinking more like a laptop. I don't know, but
Yeah, well, just to Maggie's point, I mean, yeah, because we're so intertwined with, it's not even my laptop, it's my company's.
Correct.
This phone is not mine, it's my company's.
Okay.
But regardless, I mean, even if they confiscated it for a day to pull everything off of it, it still is a pain for me,
Yep.
so. I know that, in the past, our city attorney has weighed in on it as well, so I'm fine with it. I think we're probably at that point now too, so.
And I have done some quick preliminary research. I know if we were looking at just phones, depending on what you guys wanted, I know you can usually get phones pretty minimally. in terms of if you're not looking for the latest and greatest bells and whistles. But then it would just be $30 per month per phone. So for the whole council for a year, it'd be $1,800 to put the 5 of you, or get 5 phones basically on the city's plan for phones. And then laptops would range anywhere from $500 to $1,500 depending on how much capabilities you wanted that laptop to actually have.
Yeah, I don't think we need a whole lot, but
Just, yeah, like, to me, it would be just emails and maybe to be able to download,
Occasionally get on the internet to find something really.
maybe, yeah.
And probably the Office Suite, Word, MS Office Suite.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
or,
true.
yeah,
Yep.
Could produce letters and things like that, and just send them to you.
I just don't like the fact I have to carry 2 phones with me.
Yeah, you get used to it.
What does the
Well,
benefit of a phone do for us though? Um,
You're not necessarily putting your personal phone out for your council member contact.
And it may be something where, let's say you don't run again next time, well, your number is still kind of out there from the last time. And so, in a way, it's just trying to keep your personal stuff more private, while still allowing the public to have access.
Okay, I get that. And I'm still one of those old people that have a landline and a cell phone. So for the state requirement to provide a cell or a phone number, I use the landline.
yeah.
And you can't, I mean, you're never gonna get away from someone calling you, whether you have a city phone or not. And
But
that's
you
what
don't have to respond, right? I mean, if my published phone number is one through the city,
Yeah.
and someone calls me on my personal cell phone number, then I'm not going to take, I probably won't take that call. I just, because, and landline is different, right? Because they can check your phone records, but they're not gonna take the physical phone from you. If there's a problem and they take my physical phone from me, then they have all my personal information, and I just don't want that out
You have
there.
a cell phone, I understand. The dilemma is much greater if you're using a cell phone. On a
Yes.
landline, you can subpoena a landline and you can
Right.
just time of day and duration, that type of thing.
We don't have a
Cell phone, it
landline,
gets into text messages and
you know?
what you had ordered at Domino's and all that stuff.
Yeah.
in there. So that's a different thing, but, I don't do much texting for the city necessarily, so I don't, to me, there wouldn't be a big value to me, but I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
I do. I talk to the community center on my, back and forth. And then we still have our meetings.
Right, but if you're calling on a landline, it's
On
the
Zoom.
same thing, I mean, but, the state law still requires you to give access to whatever, but if you,
No, I know where, yeah, I know where you're coming from there. It's just, it's how people use the cell phones more now than they do the landlines. I mean, my wife's been after me to get rid of the landline, and I kinda tell her I wanna keep it because of this position. You know, and that type of stuff. I don't know if everybody has a line, well, Maggie, you don't, and Rick, you don't, but,
I do, and that's where I get most of my phone calls, because that's
Yeah.
the number that's published in
and that's
the
a, you know.
newsletter.
You
But
know, and, I mean, it doesn't say that all 5 of us have to. If Maggie needs a phone and Rick needs a phone, we still can use our land. I don't know, I'm just, you know, but
Right,
I
yeah.
get the point.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would think it would be better if, you know, right after the election, when you, or, you know, when you're first sworn in, you get your phone, you get your laptop, you know, day before or whatever, issued to you. And, that would be, you know,
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how I envision it happening. And so then every 4 years, you would basically be upgraded. Because, I mean, the way technology goes, after 4 years,
Yeah.
those things are probably going to need replaced anyway. So if the turnover cycle just happens to be with every election cycle in those instances.
I'm not opposed to this, I just would be concerned that we have the infrastructure in place as far as a staff or vendor that's able to manage this, because, in my experience, like when we got bought up by the new bank, we were provided, I had bank phones, but I also got the new bank phone. They totally controlled it, and they totally control it, and they have to for their own risk assessment of it. So if you're doing anything nefarious on it, they can shut it off, or they can delete software that you might have on it, or they watch your texts, they can monitor what's being said, what buttons you're pushing. total control over the phone. And that's what we would need to have here. If we have council members that are doing things they shouldn't be doing on the phone, we have to have the ability for the city to protect itself. The ability to have someone here that's monitoring it, which is another task, and then also to deal with it or to eliminate it or reduce it or take the phone away from them. And what's the policy for that? So, I mean, there's just a lot more to it than just getting the
right.
phone. And that's, if we can have help with designing how we're gonna do that, and the same things with the iPad, because our board went to that process. You have to limit what you can do on it. If you start allowing council members to look up websites and searches, okay, that's the city's liability and the city's problem for what they're doing on it. So we have to have policies in place and make sure we have the structure of who's watching it, who's managing it, who's looking at that weekly report to see what Bruce was looking at that day, and did anything funny show up there? You know, so we have to have those kind of things going
Well,
on.
And I think our risk assessment that we're looking
Yeah.
at is gonna be a lot of help show us where our current holes are at, and you guys would then be folded into with all the employees' phones
Right,
and all the
right.
employees' laptops, and everyone would kind of be under the same system.
I'd be interested in knowing what cities have their policies in place for this, and then also this vendor, what are the things we need to do to get this done? Like I said.
Well, it would be just, I think, just like onboarding a new employee, right? You issue them the laptop and it has the city-approved software on it, and that would be that. I mean, we're a city employee.
Yeah, and I
But-
don't know,
but
maybe
policies-
a risk assessment will show that we don't have
Yeah.
any, policies in
Right,
place to show if
right.
Joe is looking at,
Yeah, and you're
things
Right.
he shouldn't
exactly
be
right.
looking at.
Yes.
Yep.
I don't know, do you know, Josh, do we have policies in place for that?
I don't think our policies are very in-depth at this point. I did
Yeah.
ask about it at one point, and it sounds like CTS has those capabilities, but it's just never been implemented or asked of them to do things such like that, in terms of that. more
And
watchdog
it's
stuff.
probably time for that too. I mean, you know, so this is good discussion just to get it going and I think we should get it going with all the input because,
Is there a policy for the people that get phones now?
There's a very general policy, I can't kind of tell you what it states off the top of your head, but basically said, so it depends. The employees, that need a phone can either get a second phone such as myself, or they can, pay a small fee to move over and use their business phone for personal use. So there's kind of two classes on how that rolls. I think that was set up initially, I'm assuming, because a lot of employees didn't want to have to carry a separate phone. But I do know, this job and previous jobs, I know many attorneys recommend separate phones to keep business and personal, completely separate at those.
I always carried two phones too.
Does the PD, do you guys have to, go by a certain policy just in case there is something said so that you gotta turn it into the courts or anything?
Yeah, I think right now I am the only one in the police department that uses my work phone as a personal phone also and pay money towards that. Everybody else has gone to, they have their work phone and then a personal cell phone also. But we do have policies in our police manual. We have some policies in our employee manual. Our current IT provider also has locked down our network, that you can't go and search certain websites, some social media, some shopping, pornographic sites. All of those are limited within our network. And they are monitoring those types of activities, and they would notify their contact person for the city if something came about on that.
Now,
So some of that is done. The fact that if a laptop is issued to you and you're gonna take that off-site, you can have two different layers of security where you either log into your Microsoft Cloud account and then have access to some of those things, or where you physically have to VPN into this network, and then all the controls and network controls and security policies are processed through that because you're coming into the network and then going out and doing
Yep.
those searches.
Yep.
So, yeah, there has to be control and there needs to be a mechanism to be able to enforce that policies and procedures are followed. We have some of that in place already, but again, like Josh said, as we do this security check, that'll probably shed some light on additional things that we might have to do.
I think it's good timing, if we're gonna explore this, to see if we can get True North's suggestions and also just to protect our liabilities. One of my concerns, do we have the processes in place and the procedures in place to protect ourselves? And I just know the amount of work we had to do in it, and it's a lot of work.
I would think that we could at least use that as a base, you know, to build off of for policy and like you say, the security company, North Star or whatever it is, they probably got recommendations and, it's too bad Ken is in here. Because when we first did the computers on, downstairs and stuff, that company also might have an idea of how, you know, if we could use a bulk rate of phones and laptops, you know, I don't know.
I'm sure that they do. It's common practice. You know, a lot of organizations have their employees with laptops out in the field. And to your point, Jim, absolutely, you can block websites. It happens all the time, happens at my work as well. You know, it's oddly enough, you go out to a news station, you know, one of the top news stations, and it's blocked for whatever reason. So it happens. It's easily done. It's easily monitored. It's all behind the scenes. I mean, technology is incredible as far as with, you know, the security that can be built in. So I think it's just knowing what to do. You know, and sometimes you don't know what's out there and what can be put in place, you know, to support whatever policy we want to have in place. But I would like to, if possible, move forward on getting equipment and not waiting for those policies, because those policies are not gonna happen overnight. And I would suspect that they're probably gonna take 6 to 7 months to draft and get approved and be implemented. I think, I'm hopeful that if we are able to get city-issued laptops, that they will come with the normal security features that are put on for our employees, and there will have to be a level of trust on our part to do the right thing.
So in terms of availability, that was part of the price differential. So the initial quote that I got sent was for $1,475 per laptop. And that was for laptops that would be available right now. As you got cheaper, most of those laptops have back orders out a few months, potentially even longer, because they need to be built. And so depending on how much you want to actually spend on this will kind of depend on how far out we could even be looking at being able to get equipment.
And were you given any idea of the back order timeline?
No, they just kind of said, I mean, it's been in flux constantly as people are ordering. But,
Okay.
it seemed, the implication was made that the less expensive we got, the farther out we'd get in terms of.
Is there a possibility of finding refurbished?
That was one of the things that we looked into, of potentially bringing the cost down on some of these laptops.
Because, I mean, we probably aren't going to be using it as frequently as, you know, a city employee.
And
It's
that was
just
kind of
curious.
what I said. I was like, we don't need to be able to run ArcGIS and CAD on these, which require a lot of processing
Right.
power.
Right, yeah, it's essentially getting into your email, right?
Right, I was just gonna say, where's the old equipment? We just got everybody new laptops in the city. Did we retain any of that old equipment?
I can look. I know we have at least some of them, because I know Ken usually has an extra laptop that he's kept in his office. When one of the various laptops in the department goes down, they kind of take the backup laptop, that sort of thing. How much of the equipment we have, I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay, I'd be fine with an old one that just strip it with whatever Ken or whomever
Yep.
it was and redo it.
Was it?
Yeah.
We kept like one of each pretty much just as emergency, because at that time CTS pretty much said, if something breaks down, we'll get you a backup, a temporary one until yours is fixed.
Yeah, and some
We
of,
don't really have any of that equipment anymore.
Oh, yeah.
And some of the
But
processors,
it was above and beyond done. I mean, it was 15+ years old.
Yeah.
You know how much technology changed. So.
Right.
I know what you're saying, you don't need much for it, but it's past its life.
yeah, and some of the processors aren't gonna to allow the newer versions of the Word Office suite to even run.
And I think the tricky part is compared to even 2 years ago before this microchip shortage, you could find a basic laptop for $150 to $200. And I think though all those ones disappeared as everyone was trying to get laptops when they were stuck at home. So it may take time to get back to where some of those less expensive laptops exist.
So you got 7,000 for the laptops around, 7,000 for my math. And then you've got, now if you get a phone plan, do you get like 5 free phones? Is there a program out there for that?
It sounds like it'd just be on our city plan, and so I think you can get almost free phones for some of those if you're willing to get one that's 2 or 3 generations back from a current model, and then it would just be $30 per month per phone.
Yeah, that's not a lot of money. I mean, I'm not.
Yeah, phones, that's not a big deal. And then the, $8,000 investment, I don't think that's a bad idea. If you're saving our equipment from being away from us for a little while. I mean, I too, you know, even though I work on my computer. If my computer goes away, I'm screwed.
Mm-hmm.
I would wish that you would, do a little due diligence on it before we just buy the equipment. I know, just from my personal experience, it's a lot more to it if we're trying to have a robust risk assessment or system on it. And, if you're looking for just a dumb computer like Chromebook, you can get those for a few $100s, and but if you need something more in that computer that provides the software that you need for the city to be able to control it and other things, I'm not aware of that. So I would just like, before we buy it, just to make sure you just check with somebody, is there any reason we should get this kind of computer instead of this one, if this is what our vision, what we're trying to do? What if the risk assessment says, well, geez, you guys just bought all this stuff, but you gotta do this with it, and you can't do it with this?
Yep.
I mean, if you just make a few phone calls before you get too far into it, I would,
And
make me feel better. But
yeah, and that's where I've kind of got the range. Like I did explain to them that I'm pretty sure this is what we need to do on the laptops, and like the least expensive one they came back with was $677, and it was a refurbished laptop. I did not ask the question. I'm assuming the capabilities would be there to put all that sort of software on there, but that would be a conversation I'd make sure
yeah,
we had before anything.
like what Jim is saying, right now, we're not going to a VPN, or I forget what you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're not doing that with our emails. We're going on Google, I think, and
Yeah, you
just
sign
going on.
into your Microsoft account.
Yeah,
So we're going on the city's network email server
no,
through that method. It doesn't affect our personal computers. We're not.
And those are all retained anyways, aren't they?
Yes, but if you save an email, you can copy it and paste it onto your hard drive because you want to save it, you don't want it to age out, then that's city
Exactly.
property.
Today I got the, link
okay, go ahead.
for the, I got the link for the, to do, I'm going to the legislative update. And so I transferred that from my work email to my, private email, no problem.
Mhm.
But that's because it's synced.
Yeah,
Forget it.
you wanted to bring something up a while back.
Just as far as like your personal devices versus all your email is saved, and I know for the school it's 7-year retention, and they have every single email. They know when you've read it. They know when you've done anything to it. So the fact it was on your personal device at any point really doesn't matter unless you were like being charged with something nefarious, not like Hillary Clinton style. But even that wouldn't be allowed because they're already controlling your mail server. So I mean, none of that is inherently there. And then similar to the cell phones, I probably that can all be, if it's not already, knowing how your network's set up, just from getting my own account and messing around to see how far I could get. that can all be managed strictly through them as well. Like as far as what apps, wiping your phone remotely, like I could wipe many people at the district's phone or at the school district's phones from my phone if I had to. So if you had your cell phone disappear, because you're logged into it, I could do it to your, because you're logged into it with your school account or with your city account, most likely you've already agreed to that ability to have that wiped. So you'd be surprised.
Yeah, I don't access
You don't have
email
you don't have your
through my
school,
phone.
your city email
Mm-mm.
address on your cell phone?
Nope,
Nope.
I don't either.
Well,
I don't need to.
all right, well, I do. So I'm guessing they could, if they wanted to, they could wipe my phone right now if they were like, Mitch Peterson did this.
Mm-hmm.
I hope
So,
our
I
risk
mean-
assessment tells us that or not, because I'm not sure of that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. So, and that's all through, and if it's not turned on now, they can easily turn it on, because you guys go through Azure, Microsoft licensure. It's all included with where you guys are at. I mean, unless I missed something when I was messing around playing, just to see what kind of access I had.
Well, if you could do that, then they could do that with your computer too, because you look on your email in there.
No, but that's different. The way your cell phone integrates with stuff, and the way because it'd be your contacts and stuff would all just integrate when you log. When you go sync your phone up with if you're an iPhone account, you sync up and sync with your iCloud account, and it syncs up with, or your Android phone, and it's Google. And the way it all syncs up, it's different than say like trying to wipe your personal device. They could block you from getting to it, just like they could like right now. You have Office. But you don't actually need the Office suite because you actually have not Open Office, Office 365.
365, yeah.
So like all you need is a web browser and you have access to all your drivers. You have OneDrive. So really you as an employee should never have to save anything to a local machine ever, because I mean, I do all my work through Ken from my phone minus the one document that I had to type out for Ken. And just because everything's on OneDrive and there's never anything actually on my phone because it's all through the web-based sync. So, not to say that you shouldn't. I actually personally think I was surprised that you guys don't have laptops, but I mean that's how that would all work. I mean that all is really manageable now. And then if you did get district cell phones, CTS, they would be able to manage all that.
Okay.
And that would all be, so whether you'd have to add a line, I mean, that would be the only part to it would be if, depending on how your thing's written up, you'd have to add it to their management ability, but like Chief Guards was saying, they already manage everything out there as far as they know what you're doing.
Yep.
Way more than you think they do, especially if you're on a city device. So there wouldn't be a report like Bruce was saying, well, who gets the report and looks? It's all done through AI, it's all done through the firewall, and it's triggering notifications. I'm sure they do. I'm sure CTS gets it.
Are we contracting with them to do that work?
Yeah.
Okay.
They are our
When we were setting that up, we talked about those websites that we wanted blocked. We talked about how they were gonna handle it. And Mitch is right that when an employee does try and hit a website that is blocked, they get notified on that. When they come in the morning, they look at those reports for all of the systems that they manage and start picking through what they need to do with those.
Right, and they check with you every year then to see if you want to adjust your.
Yeah, we have updates.
We meet with them pretty regularly.
Okay.
Yep, and then it's all AI based, so like the system learns. I mean, assuming it's a modern firewall, the system is constantly learning to, like, as risk assessment changes, and they're every day, every hour pushing out changes. And so if say something happened and there's a Russian attack, like they're constantly learning what the risks are, pushing out changes, monitoring what your computers are doing out, what computer stuff is coming in. And it's constantly learning. So it's way more than like Jim's like, don't allow this website and this website. I mean, there's millions of websites, millions of bots, millions. So, I mean, it's way more than like a list of websites you can't get to. It's the algorithms are. So I don't know if I just muddied the water for you.
No,
I just
get it.
see that they're going, I want to explain this more.
Basically, many of the systems are in place.
Yes,
That people are worried about.
Yes, a lot of the systems in place.
I think more importantly, we probably need to know what the council, what are the things you wanna use that laptop for? To make sure that it covers, because even the school issues their Chromebooks
Yes.
and have them shut down very tight, that students aren't able to do certain things on it. To the degree they can't print unless they're within the network and,
Students can't print at all.
yeah, so you can, even a simple Chromebook, which, like Bruce said, it's relatively inexpensive, could offer you all the things you want to do with it.
And if you all have iPads, if your concern is email, an iPad can do that. If your concern is Office, an iPad can do that. You might have to get a keyboard if that's your concern, but I'm pretty sure you can get those
Yeah, you can.
flip-top keyboard covers for an iPad. If those are your concerns, you can get Office, you can get Outlook, you already have the iPad. So then you just have to, so at least for this cycle, adding a cell phone would at least suffice, and then maybe when you go to reissue iPads or when, then that would be your secure device, and then to your point, you could say, here's my city-owned iPad, this is the only thing I check my email on, and then you're not have to worry about, so, and then that, again, could totally be managed and secured through your Zero licensure and how you're logged into it.
Right, right, and I know a lot of this through where I work. We interface with a lot of those same things. And for those that don't understand what OneDrive is, it's cloud-based. So all of your documents are saved in the cloud. So,
Exactly.
I would be interested to know how many council members would be interested in getting the packets just electronically, then if we would move towards this, or would we still need to do hard copies?
I know that is something that we wanted to talk about in the visioning, is moving more towards electronic-based stuff.
and we've been doing that with the park board now for well over a year, and it works very well. And the packet then is put on the screen.
Is that how they do it at the meetings then?
Yep.
Okay, because, yeah, I sit on a board and we use Dropbox and, all our information is in there. And you have the choice of bringing along a laptop or printing reams and reams of paper, because that's what you're gonna be doing. So I'd give it a try. Obviously, you could end up with a council member that might not be savvy in electronics, and you might have to cater to that one person.
Or provide some training.
Yeah, or provide some training the other way, yep, and,
I don't have either issues, but I have bad eyesight, so I like it in writing.
But what you can do on a screen, you can zoom in.
I understand, well, that.
So it makes it
Makes
bigger.
it more of a, the notebook doesn't do that, I know that. The notebook that I bought, the notebook, I bought a notebook just so that I could do the videos. Remember I was having all them problems? So, and then, now that all my stuff got upgraded, I just gave that stuff to Annette, or to, oh boy, Sally. I don't know, I just don't like having all that information on my, computer all the time. You know, 'cause I sit and I write and I don't know, I need my computer. So when you said that, I said, okay. So if we can work it up to find out exactly how much it's gonna cost, put it on the agenda, and, we'll vote on it next week.
Okay, quick question, do you have a mouse with your laptop or computer?
Yes,
If you hold the control button and use a little scroll thing, you can zoom in on just about any.
yeah, I know that.
okay.
Just
Go
to
ahead.
piggyback, I like to annotate or write notes and save my material, and I know we talked about before about having a separate, file or place where we could have access as council members for materials, or that we would be able to get offline. In it, so that is still something I would be interested in getting. I realize that the packets are not provided on the website, but then it takes an extra task to look that up on the website and then go through it. And there's other materials and other things that could be on there, like policies and things that, instead of having dig up, what did we do last year at that time when we approved the personnel policy and try to find the materials, and I'm saving hard copies to do that.
Yeah, and some of them, a lot of these conversations are one that I kinda wanted to have on Thursday as well, just to get deeper into it, cause I mean, there is software that gets pretty advanced into, like, that's built just for council packets, almost, to make them easily accessible for people, whether it's you or the general public, and so, there's a range of how we could take this if we wanted to go electronic and what capabilities we wanted out of
Yeah,
it.
and I mentioned that is, when you talk about OneDrive and what kind of computer you're getting, if I'm making notes on a packet and I wanna save it, I need to know how to do it and where is the place. Are you gonna save me space on the city's OneDrive? Or is the Chromebook could be enough, your Chromebook, you can't save anything on a Chromebook? Or you're gonna buy a laptop that has memory in it that I can save it on it? So it just kinda,
No, it's
what kind of flexibility you're gonna provide for the city council members in the future to do that?
So cloud-based is the preferred, because if your hard drive fails, you'll potentially lose what you save. So if it's saved in the cloud, it's retrievable.
Right.
Yeah.
There's an expense to OneDrive eventually when you get a lot of stuff on it, but.
Yeah.
You wouldn't touch it.
Yeah.
I think mine has 100 gigs. I do this. So I mentioned yours, I'm pretty sure.
You have a OneDrive account already with your email access.
Yeah.
Right, but I'm assuming the city's keeping all its video on OneDrive.
That's all separate. I don't.
It's not, I mean, that takes up a lot of space, but all of our city council meetings.
YouTube servers,
No.
is it not?
No, you're backing it up elsewhere, but it's not OneDrive, as far as I understand.
Okay,
You'd have to double check with Ken, because I don't.
But yes, that is something that we look into to
But
make
it's
sure
a-
that
Yeah,
our
it's a
software would
separate
work for you
backup
guys.
from- I mean, it might get partially to OneDrive, but it's on a separate backup server from the time I forgot to shut off the streaming, and it filled it up if it was OneDrive.
well,
It wouldn't have filled up.
Oh,
I don't know enough about all this to ask good questions, so I'm just poking holes in things.
so what do you want? Do you want to go ahead with the purchase tonight, or do you want to go and have him get estimates for the next meeting?
I think let's explore, it seems that based how we would use it is pretty much email, and then maybe, drafting, some documents or if we wanted to draft a letter to somebody, whatever, I haven't yet, but, and then maybe eventually receiving our packets electronically. And could that all be done on an iPad or a Chrome or something that doesn't require a more expensive personal computer? Really what we're doing is extremely limited.
Yeah, and that's what I'd want it to be, too limited. Okay,
We should just
Thank you,
do a
Josh.
not to exceed and just throw out $10,000 and then let Josh figure it out from there.
Well, that'd be more than I would possibly need. I mean, I can come back in 2 weeks with some recommendations too, and we can go from there.
okay. So whatever, I'm open to either or. Okay, 2
It'd be nice
weeks.
if we got the information by the next meeting. though,
Okay.
because
Yep, I can do that.
We've discussed this like 3-4 times, and
Okay.
it just gets put on the side burner.
Yep, I will try to have a recommendation to proceed at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, sounds good. All right, we're down to miscellaneous. Matt?
I just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of an update on the fuel leak we had at a local gas station here in town again for hopefully not for the second full summer, but this happened last summer. I'm not gonna name the gas station, but, so last summer we had this fuel leak early in the year. We got a call pretty much about this time. Again, as you saw in Josh's weekly updates,
Yep.
all the necessary people, MPCA, everybody was involved like it's supposed to be. Holiday thought they corrected the issue. Again, they did soil borings. They went to the extreme to try to solve the issue like they should have. Last Monday, we got a call from a resident, saying there's fuel in the creek again. We sent, staff out there and noticed it. We have our own cleanup stuff that we did a quick cleanup, called the MPCA, called Holiday, called the necessary sources again. This time around, we're getting a larger amount than we've ever saw all of last year. But again, last year was a very dry year. So I think that had something to do with it. You get all that moisture in the ground. Now it's starting to push it. So last year they removed a storm line and found another storm line, probably 15, 20 feet away. It just follows that trench, that sand, that backfills those pipes, and that's what it follows, the easiest source. So long story short, we met with them about 3 times last week. They came up with a temporary plan, just with the frost in the ground. This will be a large project for this gas station to remove to come up with a permanent plan. But it looks like they have a temporary plan that might be in place this week that will 99% of the fuel will not get into our creek. It'll be caught in kind of this little holding area where they can do the cleanup in that little holding area instead of getting into our creek. So hopefully there will be a lot of movement going on there towards the end of this week. If not end of this week, very quickly, Monday, Tuesday next week. They're supposed to submit plans to me today or tomorrow. I have not seen them yet. And then moving forward from there. But we are aware of it. You will see, if you ever walk by this creek, there's cleanup bio rolls in the creek to catch it so it does not travel any farther down. Right now it's contained into about a 20-foot area.
Matt, the holding area you're talking about, if we got excessive rains, could that overflow?
That's when I say that 95% of it will not get in the creek. It's those 2-inch rainfalls. That's where, but they're still going to have their rolls around it. So if we did get those big rains that it would get to the creek, it would be getting caught into those rolls. But again, there's always a chance. And PCA says says this gas station is doing everything that they should be doing. So they're taking the necessary steps. But again, I made it very clear we put up with this all last summer. Not that they want to put up with it either again, but I said something's got to move quick, and they have been. So
Yeah, I'm just thinking time is definitely of the essence, because I know exactly what happened last summer as well.
it was very frustrating.
Well, and
Summer.
we went through and did a cleanup, the park board did a cleanup through that whole creek area, and it was still a problem even after supposedly it got remediated, so there was still,
Even once you do a complete
the smell,
cleanup, you
there
can
was still a
get a
smell.
smell from it.
Yeah.
Just because it's got the residuals in the ground.
Yeah.
But
Well, what is the cause? Is it a leaking tank and just from the frost heave, it's splitting or what?
they got a couple things they think might be happening, but nothing set in stone. No, they're still doing some major looking into investigation work into it.
It'll have to be till summer. I mean, the frost goes down 6 or 3 feet at least.
A permanent fix will not be happening until the frost comes out of the
Yeah.
ground. But there's plenty of temporary fixes that can happen, which that's what they're looking into doing.
It's just weird that it's happening at the same time of the year. I mean, at a 3-foot level where the top of the tank is, probably there could be some expanding and contracting, and that's where that leak is. Be nice to fix though. I mean, that's bogus.
Do you know what work was done last year, when it
Correct the
happened?
issue.
Yeah, what was the correction action?
So there's fuel line getting into an old storm line on the north side of this car wash. So they eliminated this storm line, and at the docks that's where all the fuel is coming into the creek. The docks were maybe we should put some wells in they call them wells. Something you can open up, you can check to see if there's still contamination. They can pump it out instead of it moving. And at the time, they didn't think it was necessary. I would say I would be shocked if that was not the bare minimum of what they will be doing this year, besides probably excavating a bunch of soil out of it, contaminated soil out.
So last year, they didn't, as I understand what you're saying, they didn't do the work to find where the source was happening.
They found the area that is contaminated.
But they didn't find what caused it.
They felt like they did, yes, but they did.
But they didn't find it.
No, they found what they believed was the issue. They felt like it was a gas, what do you call it, a gas gun?
Nozzle.
Nozzle, thank you. They felt like they found there was a leak out of one of them. They felt like that was the issue, but.
Is surface going then into ground and then following the drain line?
I will tell you that's what they told us. And many of us we didn't believe that could contaminate that much soil, but again, we're not professionals in this field. That's why they have the MPCA.
It'd be pretty obvious to see from day to day on the cement, I would think.
They thought it was about 1.5 years of leaking is what they reported. out of this gun gas pump.
Wow,
Probably one of the.
kinda hard to believe.
Yeah, it is
It
very.
is hard to believe, and again, I mean, it's not a city problem, but it is at the same time, because it is getting into our creek, but we don't have, MPCA is what controls everything, what's gonna be taking place out there. It's not, the city can't say, nope, you are gonna excavate 500 ton of contaminated soil. No, the MPCA has to
So
initiate.
we can't
that.
stop their conditional use permit or whatever,
Not when they're taking the necessary steps in their eyes to correct the issue.
Interesting.
Thanks for the update.
Anything else, Matt?
No, I'm gonna have good news next time. Promise. I'll think of something.
Jim?
Just to update, later this week on Thursday, we'll be doing interviews with 8 candidates for the police department.
Okay. Josh?
A few updates. Building inspector interviews, I think are kind of wrapping up, and hopefully by the next meeting, we'll have a recommendation for hire to fill the open building inspector position. Parks position, the other one we talked about, the budget will probably be going out to publish for a parks position here pretty soon as well.
you have a parks job open?
We talked about in the budget that our parks position was gonna drop off 3 temporaries and add a full-time parks position. We haven't advertised.
Oh, that, okay, all right.
Yep. And then finally, as Councilman Wolf saw, I did send out the visioning email that had our list and description of everything that's on there, so
I got it on my cell phone.
that's. It's gonna be a lot of scrolling then on your cell phone. But if you guys have any questions about that before Thursday, let me know. Otherwise, the meeting is 4:30 to like to be out of there by 7. So for some reason we have more to do.
We'll just
I
keep it,
figure we will call it quits and we will schedule another one for a few weeks or so down the road.
because that's a big list.
Hey,
Maggie?
Visionaries.
That's right. Maggie?
I don't have anything, thank you.
John? Nope. I don't have anything. Bruce?
Just a plug and a invitation, New Prague Area Historical Society is doing their annual meeting at Giesenbrau on April 6th. And it's going to be discussing Minnesota Valley Breeders Association. This business was a very important business to the city of New Prague. And it's the business that spawned off Minnesota Valley Engineering, and which is Chart Industries, also the Harvester Division, and was a very internationally renowned leader in insemination. So some people might find that very
When is
interesting.
that? Or the
April
ti-
6th at Giesenbrau.
Yeah, what time?
The program starts at 7, the social is at 6:30. And then I had a question if anyone's aware when the actual Veterans Memorial dedication date is.
Yes.
I forgot it.
I got it, they emailed it to me, and I'll send out that email, or I'll send out an email with the date, what they're projecting.
Yeah, that'd be nice to go to that one, so yeah.
It's a couple weeks before Memorial Day.
I was just
in
gonna
May.
say, how come they just didn't do it on Memorial Day?
Is it on a Saturday?
I think so.
Okay.
I kinda glanced at the date, but I didn't, really get into it because I got it maybe a month ago, and,
Well, thank you. I appreciate it if you
yeah,
will.
I will. I'll send that off to all of you.
That's all I got.
Okay, I got 2 things. That CVC is coming to the EDA, Bruce. The CVC, it's just a report. Did you get a copy of that?
I may have, I'll have to look.
If not, Bruce is gonna, it's probably gonna be at the packet for the EDA, right? Is that what you're gonna do with it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, from the CDA.
Yeah,
Yes, I got. Yes, I did receive that email from the CDA, which is why it was going in the EDA packet, which is where we pulled it out of.
This thing?
yep. And it would be nice if that went to everybody on the council, because there's some really good numbers and information on it. So I thought it was very interesting when I seen it. And, if you're gonna be talking about it at the next EDA meeting, I'll probably swing in there just to hear the talk about it, so. Second thing, Matt, tell the guys driving the plows, thanks, they did a good job this year, and hopefully we don't need them no more, but Tell them thanks, we appreciate the work they do. I'm done.
Okay, I would take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? I'll second it. All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries.
Sean, CNC?
Yeah.
I just wanna say, I've come to board meetings